Domain tools help security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. Are your existing solutions able to take advantage of real threat intelligence? Common solutions like firewalls weren't designed to handle the massive and growing volume of threat indicators. This challenge often results in significant gaps in your protections, even when you think you have it covered. You need to protect yourself by filtering network traffic against unique threat indicators in a way that allows you to act. Polywall by Bandora Systems is the solution that filters over 10 million indicators right out of the box. Developed in partnership with the Department of Defense, Polywall is affordable for companies of all sizes. Get your free trial today at bandorasystems.com. Rapid7 powers the practice of SecOps. Using shared data, analytics, and automated workflows, SecOps unites IT, DevOps, and security teams to make security an outcome of innovation. Rapid7 combines technology, expertise, and advocacy to drive vulnerability management, application security, incident detection, and log management for more than 7,000 organizations worldwide. Power up your SecOps practice with a free trial at rapid7.com/securityweekly.
We are back, and we're going to try something different this week. We're going to keep it to a 2-segment show. So here's what's happened. We've already interviewed on the program Dan Wheatley, and Paul and I are enjoying working with Dan. He's gone in, he's looked at some of the statistics, he's looked at some of the information for us, and he came back with a pretty interesting finding. And Paul and I just decided we're going to go ahead and share it with you. And now I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but basically most of you who listen to Business Security Weekly engage with us to about 48 minutes long. So what we would say in the industry area, it's good engagement, but it kind of cuts off. So it's like the first 2 out of 3 segments. My logical question back to Dan was, so are people engaging in the update section, or are they sticking around for just the interviews, or the interviews or discussion? And the answer was, yeah, I don't know yet. So what Paul and I have looked at is, for the summer at least, as things are a little busier for a lot of us, we take some time off, we've got time. We don't want to inundate you where you're like, skip, 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 delete, delete, delete. At least if you do that, I know I do that a lot of times with podcasts I can't catch up on. We're going to try to keep it a little bit tighter, and we're going to try to look at stuff a little bit differently. But there's 2 things that you're going to see from us. First of which is we just put together our audience survey. We really want to know what you think. In fact, it's kind of interesting. I mean, Paul, we're almost at show number 100 here. This is your full-time occupation. Like, this is what you do. This is a fantastic legacy you've built. And as Sandy just explained, from the days of just a PSW show back with a former name, grown up now to 8 different things. I think we've given people a lot of stuff to grow with in this network. And so when we do this, we've designed it so far, and we're going to make maybe one more tweak to it, and then we're going to make it live. So please look for that. If you haven't yet, it will definitely be on the securityweekly.com website. There'll be a big, gigantic way for you to come give us your feedback.
We'll have a URL that we'll read on the show too, Michael, for that.
Yeah, and we're gonna push it because, and here's the idea. We've gone through these questions. Paul, Dan, we've all gone through these questions. We've thought about them. We've thought about specifically why we're asking that, how that helps us. And it's that combination. You know, if you think about the interview we just had with Sandy, it's understanding what you need. It's understanding what you want and what you like, but also understanding what you need, because that gives us that ability to look at those trends. And we pledge the same transparency that I favor, that we love to be able to offer you on this program. And so far, it's timing out to take 7 minutes or less for you to share your thoughts and ideas with us. But then consider this the renewed invitation to always feedback to us. A lot of the segments that we've created are because you're telling us what you want. You're telling us the challenges that you're looking for our insights on, and we've created. That's why we're going to talk about time audits next week. And I'm telling you, it's a big, important thing. And so I'm going to spend some time this week tidying that up, and that'll be our opening segment next week as we work through those different things. So let us know, like, do you follow these innovation updates? Is it worth our time to put those together for you and track it? Is that useful? Or maybe is that something that you'd like us to see every other week or once a month? We do those types of updates just as a segment and just give you the high notes. Are there other things that you'd like us to see do more of around communication and leadership and innovation? we're going to be happy to explore any or all of that. That's your chance to be able to do that. And for this week, we're going to kind of combine the two. I got to tell you what, it was a pretty light week in terms of things happening. And Paul found a pretty cool article. And so, hey, you know what? We merged them together. We'll see where it goes. And we're going to keep trying some different stuff. So stick with us and guide us. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you want. And we're here because we want you to be successful. Like, it's funny. We just had a fantastic interview with Sandy. Great interview with Masha last week. Great interview with Christian the week before that. Like, we've had fantastic insights from you, sharing with each other about the stuff that you like. We want more of that. And we're here to provide that. So we're pretty excited about that. Anything to add, Paul?
No, I mean, help us help you. And also, we ask
Stand
our
up on your desk when
listeners.
you say that.
And our listeners are going to help us, right? It ends of mutual benefit is really kind of was my thoughts when you were describing all of that, Michael, right? And I think that the strategy for Security Weekly is I don't want to ever have to ask for a donation from the listeners or charge for an episode. So in order to do that, we have to have sponsors. So help us make sure that the programming is right for you, and we understand you're going to have to, hear sponsored interviews and sponsorships, and largely people are okay with that. I want to make sure we maintain the balance. I want to make sure that there's enough benefit here in the show, and also, bring the sponsors in as well. And knowing that's our strategy, and also some of the information, we're not going to share your information with our sponsors for this survey. We're not going to share it outside of anywhere, right? It's just for us. It'll be as anonymized as possible. I think there will be an option if you want to talk with us, actually have a conversation with us, about the survey. You can put your name and email in, and we'll contact you. Other than that, we don't collect the information. But we need information about who listens, basically, so we can best position our sponsors so that, again, we can have a mutually beneficial relationship with our sponsors as well. And I think
in fact,
that's the strategy.
Anecdotally, Paul, people have stopped me at shows to thank us because we've called attention to through some of our partnerships and sponsorships to things that they didn't know existed, and it's worked out really well for them.
Yeah, and we want to continue to do that, obviously.
And as I've pointed out to people all along, what I really have enjoyed about working with you is that you care. So it's not like, oh, you've got a check, cool, welcome to Security Weekly. Like you're validating it, you're checking with everybody, you're looking all those things out. And so definitely helping us understand the challenges that you're facing helps us figure out if there's anybody we should target, anybody we should exclude, anybody that we should engage in that conversation. And then one of the things we strive to do here is help them tell their stories in context. You'll notice, especially on this program, you don't get a lot of marketing speak. You get somebody come in and talking about the problem they're trying to solve, why they're excited about it, what's different about it. We want to keep doing that. And the better we understand your challenges, the more we can make everything work for everybody. And so that's our goal. And I'm excited about it. Like I like stuff like this. This is where I geek out. So
absolutely.
It gets a lot of fun. All right. So the big move for the week was Splunk acquired VictorOps, $120 million. This is good. This is a good exit. So VictorOps has raised about $36.3 million over 3 rounds. Now the rounds get weird. So this is one of those things where you look at it and you say, okay, so how, like 3 rounds, right? There was a debt round report. Like the papering on it was really kind of weird, but which tells me there could be more than 3 rounds, but just assume it was the 3 rounds, $36 million, $120 million exit. It's almost a 4X. It's a solid 3+. That's not bad. Like that is a good exit. But take a look at what Splunk acquired, right? Because if you remember, they got Phantom Cyber. They had one other one that I can't remember. And then so VictorOps is a unified incident management platform that offers real-time alerting, collaboration, and documentation for, drumroll please, DevOps teams. This is a good move for Splunk. I mean, Splunk built themselves up. They're a bit of a premium product today, but they're now looking at the capabilities that they need to be that one-stop shop, and they're on the hunt for it. So
yeah, and I think
cool for them.
Both these acquisitions speak to. And I like that you mentioned Phantom Cyber. I'd forgotten about that, but that's very relevant to this acquisition here of VictorOps, Michael. It was very astute of you to point that out. And I think what they're really trying to do is play in that operation space, right?
Absolutely.
Say, hey, look, we'll collect a bunch of data for you, but you're going to have to act upon that, and let's help you automate that with Phantom Cyber and tie some of that automation into your DevOps team. Those are 2 very strategic acquisitions for Splunk. If they can keep their prices down, they're still going to be a strong player in the market, because the one thing I hear is it's an investment to get into the upper levels at Splunk, or I'm not sure what the base level is, right? But when you start building on that, the complaint tends to be, about the price tag that's associated with it. Let's hope that they're giving the value. I talk to some Splunk customers that are happy with it, and others that are searching for cheaper, innovative solutions. This is probably Splunk's answer to that. Be like, look, we got this innovation, we acquired it, and hopefully they can come up with a lower priced offering. I think they'd be awesome in the marketplace.
I think there's a flip side to it too, which is they can now sell into other places. It's we've had this longstanding narrative that security needed their own tools for the 20 some odd years I've been doing this, and I'm starting to see. I noticed this trend in the last decade, where I would have people at security conferences come up. I'd give the keynote, and they'd come up and they'd say, "Hey, I'm not on the security team. I have a question. Why won't the security team let me run that tool? Or I already have tools that can do this. Why won't they listen to me?" I see this as that answer. I see this as somebody else saying, you know what? We need to give people the power to do their jobs. And that means engaging with the security team. And I love it. Like, this is very refreshing to me. I think it's important on a security team to push stuff to the edges. So if you can now do orchestration and automation, and you can do your integration with DevOps, that means now I might not sell to the security team. I might be selling to the DevOps team and clicking a security bucket. I might be selling to somebody else and clicking the security bucket. And I've seen that in some vendors, and I've seen that in a couple of our partners and sponsors as well. And guess what? It's doing really well, because those groups are much better at managing the value. So they can come back and say, hey, that saved us X amount on storage. That saved us X amount of time. We deployed faster. We deployed better. And that trades up real savings really fast. And oh, by the way, we got a good lift with security, and security's happy. In fact, I'll go a step further. If you're a CISO listening to this, that might mean you can get someone else to pay for what you need and be happy about the fact that it's on their budget, not yours.
And you wonder, Michael, over the past 10 years, have we seen this convergence in the solution space? Is it a solution maturity or a culture thing, or both, that has kind of led to...
It's both.
It's both, right? Because I remember...
I think it's an organizational maturity too.
Yeah, and I remember early days in the university, I'm like, well, I'm like, we're a security team of 2, maybe 2.5, right? And... like, we get all this stuff to do in vulnerability management. Like, there's no way that I can go run all these scans and analyze the results and make recommendations for the entire organization. I'm like, I want other teams to have this tool and look at the results and take action on them and have their own processes. At the time, I think you're right. It was organizational maturity, it was the solutions maturity, and it was kind of the culture about IT and security that weren't quite there yet to really push that forward. I think you fast forward to today, and we're starting to see that more and more.
Yeah, we're at the start.
And people embrace it.
It's
I think
not
more
here,
people
but it's
embrace
coming,
it.
and it's great. Yeah, and if you can do that, if you can take advantage of that, like, again, take the great interview we just had with Sandy, and she's talking about shifting left in the organization, but she's looking at it, and this fits into everything we like to do with the straight talk approach. It's understanding other perspectives, understanding how the work gets done, and then making sure that you're improving it for the sake of improving it, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. And I see things like this. It's a smart play for Splunk on a lot of reasons. It's a good exit for the people at VictorOps, and I think overall this signals a growing and welcome trend in the security space.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
The secondary part to it is, what does the pricing structure look like? How do you get into it? I'm of two minds. On one hand, I think Splunk probably needs to pay attention to it. On the other hand, there's an advantage to being the category king.
Sure.
And I love then how this creates innovation, because we've talked to people that said, well, actually, I can give you this cheaper. Or we see a lot of people now that they sideload stuff because Splunk can't do it as well yet, or Splunk costs too much to do that. But that's great, because if you're solving that problem, and we know Splunk's on an acquiring spree, congratulations, you've got an acquisition opportunity.
Yeah, you've got a potential exit there. Certainly.
So that's good. Now, same vein, and I didn't know this one as well. Maybe you've got some more experience with them, but is it Claroty? Is how I say it. $60 million Series B. So this is another one of those ones where you look at their funding rounds. They had an equity round of $32 million in 2016. An equity round, $32 million. That's not an A round, everybody. Like, that's a growth round to begin with, and a 60. So this is where calling it a Series B, that's a papering exercise. Don't worry about that. $60 million raised means that you're in growth mode. Like, that's what you're doing. And that makes sense to me, because if you're trying to do vulnerability detection and threat monitoring, and you're trying to handle it in the industrial sector, if you're in the US, this is the hot topic today. Everybody is talking about it. The government is taking a look at it. All sorts of stuff here. This is great positioning for them to be able to go after these types of things. That said, despite all their money, it's not a company I've personally come across at all. And I've worked with clients in the energy sector, so it's kind of interesting to me. Have you come across them, Paul?
I haven't. No, I think it's an interesting play. I'm trying to see like what exactly what industrial industries they play in and how vulnerability management is different.
What? I'd have to pull them up again real quick, and I can do that as we're talking about it. They're pretty much playing into that ICS space, I think.
Okay. Is that what you mean by industrial sector? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and that can be slightly different as your operational technology is vastly different landscape than your traditional IT infrastructure. So I can see there is a whole industry of basically security that's applied to that, because it is a lot of the requirements and landscape is very different. Although I think there's a lot of convergence, especially with IoT. However, I go back to our previous conversation and also tie it into this this story as well, Michael, is that when I start looking now at solutions, the ones to me that have the most value, it's almost not about really combining security with operations, but that it's the same thing to begin with, right? So if I've got some kind of exposure, misconfiguration, or some kind of issue with my system, on the surface, right, I need to detect that. It doesn't matter if it's security. It doesn't matter if it's operational. It could be performance related. It could be just a bug, or a vulnerability. But I need to know about them. In the same context, help me prioritize those, right? Like, I'm not saying I think that's the big thing. Security things,
you just hit on for me what's the biggest part of it. It's you and I have been fortunate to meet a lot of people that have actually worked in the intelligence community, and or folks that have worked on that intelligence and turned it into boots kicking down doors. It always comes down to prioritization. It comes down to timeliness and relevance of information in the appropriate context to be able to act on it. And that's been, I think, one of the challenges of the solutions that we've seen in the past, and why we almost see this marketing backlash against, we're not just alerts, because alerts, people have figured out, waste time. On average, 90% of their time is wasted on alerts. And so what we see now is this growing trend toward, I'm going to give you information, I'm going to validate it a number of different ways. So if I'm actually presenting it to you, it's no longer an alert. And people are calling it different things, and it doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is the outcome. So what you're telling me is, if I get this signal, that's probably something I should go take a look at. Yes. Yeah. And I should act on it timely. Yes.
As the manager of our internal software project, as an example, right, I really get the perspective, through this lens of what it means to like manage a project. And I'm like, I want to know about all of the variables, right? And to go back to our conversation last Thursday, right, I want to know about everything, because I need to work with my team to prioritize that. So let me know, like, if we've got performance issues, if we've got scalability, reliability, or security issues, or if there's some change now that we're going to incur too much technical debt. I want to know about it all right now, and let's prioritize it. Security is going to be in the mix, and that's important, right? But so are those other things. And how do we prioritize to make sure that we're taking into consideration all those factors and building the appropriate amount, so that, one, we don't incur too much technical debt, and two, we minimize unplanned work, right? And that's really in unplanned work. That could be some kind of heinous performance thing, some kind of upgrade we didn't do that bit us, or it could be a big security event. And so I think we need to stop looking at it as operations and security being separate. It's all the same thing.
I completely agree with you, and that's why I think a lot of people are moving this way. I'm going to point out something interesting on this the Claroty website. They have a bit. It's below what we call below the fold. It says the difference. And I think this is fascinating. I'm actually curious if you have an opinion on this, not just you, Paul, but you listening to us right now. With substantial funding and an unparalleled executive team, they've built the leading company in industrial cyber today. Wow, that's interesting. I mean, by the way, they're all about energy and power,
sure,
and stuff like that, and it makes sense. But it's interesting that they're kind of leading out, say, look, we've got the funding, so we're awesome. I don't actually dispute that. I mean, $92 million in funding is no small.
It's a lot of
no
funding.
Small potatoes for this, and so with the right team, it was kind of interesting to see that as a difference.
Not a lot of revenue being reported though to back up that funding though.
No,
quote,
but I think it's coming.
Yeah, well, one quote was 131K in revenue. I'm not sure if that's in the past.
Assume that's wrong.
Oh, yeah, and then the estimated revenue on Owler is 7.5 million.
That feels probably more accurate,
Sure.
and that's why they took on a bit of funding right now. I think. All right, so let's take a look at it. If you're one of these companies, it's interesting because Paul, you just said, hey, I think we need more integration and we need to be better about everything. That's why when we do the value prop stuff, we talk about impact. I want to understand, how do you work with my existing environment? Do you make what I have better? Yeah, I like you. No, you're probably going to degrade value for me. But it's really hard sometimes as a startup to say, right, and I could do all these things. It's much easier for them to say, I've got this great credibility in the industrial space. We understand energy production and distribution, and we know how to secure that. And PS, it's a really hot topic right now. Makes it great to go get in your $60 million of funding to say, if everybody knew about us, if we were out there and we were considered the category kings, we can own the energy marketplace. Oh, and by the way, once we own the energy marketplace with our platform, we can add this, we can add this, we can add this, we can add this, and we can go forward from there. So I think it'll be interesting to see where they go. Yeah, it's an interesting space. So if you're in that space and you've got insights on them or opinions, as you've seen us do over the last 2 years, we don't have to name names in terms of you giving us insights, but I'm always curious to know what you think of it and how it goes. So Paul, this is a story you picked out.
Yeah.
MIT's mind-blowing solutions to the 9 hardest startup problems. I think it's really neat too because it's written by Peter Cohan, and Peter Cohan, I actually interviewed him when I was still doing the writing for CSO. He is a professor at Bentley. Oh gosh, I probably just got that wrong. One of the Boston colleges, so it's not fair. And so he reached out to MIT and said, here are 9 problems. What are your answers to it? And they came back. And they had, I thought, some pretty good answers. There's a few here that stood out to me. I'm going to go with the one that I liked best. It was question number 3. How should CEOs create and sustain a culture that helps their startups to scale? And he said, look, go eat culture, eat strategy for breakfast. And he basically said that this is absolutely important. And I just want to add to that, yes, and I think that's actually a proxy, because I watch a lot of people spin their wheels worrying about strategy, and they don't always understand the difference between strategy and tactics. And if you go back and you look at a lot of stuff around that, it really comes down to, in fact, I think it was one of our generals, Marshall or somebody said, violently executed, it beats brilliantly planned. Yep, there you go. But what I've also looked at is its execution will beat that. So when we say culture eats strategy, yes, and that culture needs to be one that prioritizes action. And we've got another article about that today that I think gives us some insight.
I thought it was a great article for those that may be considering doing a startup. I thought it covered a lot of the aspects we've talked about here in the show, Michael, very succinctly. In question 1, I think is arguably one of the most important ones in my mind. You a sprinter or a marathoner? I thought that was really good, right? And there's something to be said for a really fast growth path. And if you set that out from the beginning, it's super important to have that planned out and know that that's your goal versus this is something that's going to grow more slowly over time. And, that's something that I think I struggled with and didn't quite understand in the startup world. Like, why are you taking on so much money and fast tracking it? Like, that fast track is very different from maybe we're going to take a little bit of funding or maybe we're going to bootstrap and we're going to grow this thing. So I thought that was important. And then I think the other thing is, knowing yourself about what kind of CEO you're going to be. In other words, how far are you going to get before you start to get help, you start to get a new CEO, and that's going to depend largely on, question 1, certainly, and some of your other goals that you're setting for yourself and your company, which I thought was important things to think about. Certainly, I like the culture one as well, Michael. In revenue tiers. This is an important exercise we haven't talked about on the show in some time, Michael, is to think about your numbers. Like, okay, how long would it take with this model before I get to $1 million? And then
that's a fair point.
How do we go to 10 million after that? And where does 100 million? And if your model starts breaking down, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to help you in your planning.
Yeah, this was a great article for all that. I want to underscore something you said too in terms of knowing yourself. A lot of the leaders I work with, that's actually the basis of it. And in fact, some of the books that I'm looking at that I'm bringing my kids through over the summer are specifically geared around that. And I'm not sure how much time we'll give them on the program, but I'm going to build like a quiet starter pack and say, hey, if you're trying to figure some of this stuff out for yourself, These are the things that are going to really set that foundation for you. What I think is always fascinating is, are you the person who's going to be the CEO when you cross these different thresholds, or are you suited to, so back to that sprinter versus marathoner, and there's a few other options in there. And I've always been impressed by the people who say, look, I'm the startup guy, but I'm not going to be the CEO. That somebody else can have that. And I respect that. Like, I like that. I think knowing that is good, because as it calls out, you see some of these other folks in different positions and you think that's the way it's going to be, and it's not always. So no, it was good. It was good. We covered a lot of stuff in a short period of time. 2 techniques for helping employees change ingrained habits. This is this was great. And I'm going to cut right to what I really liked about it. It's called implementation intentions. It's an if-then statement, and this is so insanely powerful. I hope this is the one, go read this. Basically says, look, we always talk about change and we get ourselves really excited. And despite even the negativity and the bias that we have in security to see the things that go wrong, we always say, but if I just do this and this and this and it'll work this way, it'll be great. We need to get better at being able to say, and what's likely to get in the way? That's part of the reason we're going to talk about time audits next week. But when you do that, and this was the real big key here, and I love this, figure out what the obstacles are going to be and then set the implementation intention. So it goes like this. If this obstacle happens, this is the response I'm going to have. And this is what we miss. We tell people that things are going to change, but we don't give them the ability to have any agency, any control over how they're going to act with those changes. This is what solves that. You let them identify the potential obstacles or the things that get in their own way. And it's great if you're trying to change your own behaviors or patterns, just saying, okay, so when this happens, and I'll give you one from the world of diets, right? Like, I have this craving for ice cream. Okay, well, what can you do instead of it? Well, I can do this, or I can do this. It's not just say no. It's, I can do this. I can acknowledge it. I can whatever. And you can start to put yourself into a better position. I think it's really cool. There's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. It's based a little bit on Stoic philosophy. It was a really good read. Like, I'm debating. It's a book I've thoroughly enjoyed. I got to debate if it's like one of the 6 we'll recommend left for this year. But it's kind of proving that, right? It's a simple, not easy thing. If you understand where the obstacles are, overcoming those becomes your way. But in order to do that, you can't just say, and I'm going to take it. Nope. If that pops up, then this is what we will do. And you can regroove patterns and behaviors and everything. This, to me, it's worth reading. It's easy read. It's got a couple examples in there, some very specific examples on how to do it. I think it's really powerful. The last one we threw in there, the same thing, and these are all kind of on the same idea here. Go fast and break things. The difference between reversible and irreversible decisions. And the point is, not all decisions are equal. The amount of information, the perfection of the information that you need in order to make a good decision types it changes. And it really breaks down to, can you reverse the decision, or is the decision irreversible? Sandy talked about that. She said, look, I'm in healthcare. Healthcare tends to be conservative because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with their needs and we're dealing with all, and so we move at a much more measured pace. Okay. They're going to be making more irreversible decisions, and therefore there's a defined process with sets of information and a way that they deliberate on that. What I found, and this gave me the voice to something I've looked at for a while, which is go thrash around a bit, try it. I used to always joke, I don't know about you, Paul, I do everything twice, the first time and then the right way. Mm-hmm. But the first time didn't matter. I was building out shelves in a closet. I was figuring something out. But you learn over time. You figure it out. And yeah, they're easily reversible decisions. Now, what I kind of look at like here though is there's a cautionary tale in it. I call them the boomerang decisions, because these happen to us in security all the time. You go to the meeting, you tell them what you want, and they go, sounds great, I love it. Then 3 days later, yeah, about that. Yeah, we changed our mind. Wait, what? That's not an irreversible versus reversible decision. That's just a corporate challenge that we need to work our way through. So I just wanted people to understand that, reversible decisions don't mean that you're going to get a yes and then someone's going to come along later and tell you no. It's more about, are there things in your environment where somebody can try? And okay, doesn't work out. Cool, didn't work. All right, let's try the next thing. And so this is where like the agile world and that DevOps, that DevOps, DevSecOps, whatever we call it today, 2-week cycles. Like, can you try something that's not a lot of cycles in 2 weeks? See how it works.
How reversible is this decision? I think when you put it in a software context, that tends to be a line of questioning that I ask. Like, so we're gonna go with that database. Like, what if we want to change someday? Like, how much work is that on a scale of like 1 to 100? Is that like a 90, or is it more like a 25? Right.
Yeah, versus getting that data now or transacting it and realizing this really is a minimum viable product. And yeah, we're going to have to re-engineer it, right? And that's where the discussions of technical debt come in and everything else. And some of that, frankly, we don't know until we get through it. That's the thing I'm finding in my 40s is that in my 20s, I didn't understand some of that nuance. I was much more for going fast and breaking things. And in my 40s, I'm not against it, but now I see that sometimes it's worth going a little slower, and some stuff it's worth going a little faster.
Yeah.
You know, and it's trying to figure out that balance. And I don't know that it's easy.
No.
But that's definitely the type of stuff that we take a look at. So I'm not sure how we did today in terms of trying to keep everything tight. The way I've looked at it is we're going to try to program these segments for 2 24-minute segments. I mean, to be fair, I always look at network radio and network television. Those seem to be about the length of programs, right? 22 minutes to 24 minutes. We're going to try to catch up with that, and just so that way we're giving you tight, actionable information in short bursts. So, of course, as always, let us know how we're doing. I'm about to head to the airport. In fact, I had some trip cancellations, but I'm going to be working with another enterprise client this week, including some stuff around a time audit. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody next week. In the meantime, you can catch me on Twitter at Catalyst. Paul is at Security Weekly. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can let us know what you thought of today's show. You can send us email, feedback. I'm not good with smoke signals or pigeons, but if you can get one to me, I'll do my best and try to figure it out. And I'll leave you with this. The exceptional, oh my goodness. Maybe I should just cut it right here. Exceptional leaders elevate the people around them, and our goal is to help you be more exceptional. Here's to your week of making the people around you just a little bit better, and we'll see you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great week.